Today's episode of Desertwood Days with Kathy Blaze is sponsored by Dork Publishing, expanding minds through fantasy since 2018. Learn more at the Dork Publishing website, www.dorcpublishing.com.
I wanna visit all the places nobody goes. I wanna teach all the things that nobody knows. I wanna grow wings, leave the coop, learn to fly. Bungee jump from the tallest building in Dubai. I wanna fly around town in my UFO. I wanna eat real food, not the GMOs. I wanna make moves, call the shots like the boss. I wanna love like I never lost.
Welcome back to Desertwood Days. I am so excited for our next guest. She is such a powerhouse in our community. Let's welcome Dr. Deshawn Taylor. Hello there.
Thanks for having me.
Such a pleasure. Thank you for joining us today. Dr. Deshawn Taylor. You know what? I have been watching you out there in the community and all that you're doing. You've just been doing amazing things in our community. You're a doctor, you're an activist, you're an author, and you're just so much more. You're so much more. I like to get a little bit of a bio and let our audience get to know a little bit about who Deshawn is before we get started, if you wouldn't mind sharing. First off, where are you originally from?
So I was born, raised, and trained in Los Angeles, California.
Oh, okay.
I've been in Arizona now for 13 years. And that's enough time to be in Arizona, and I feel like an Arizonan.
Yeah.
I don't go back to LA much.
Wow, I didn't realize you've been here that long.
Yeah.
That is awesome. That is awesome. So you are a physician and family practice?
So I'm an OBGYN
Okay.
by training,
Okay.
and I specialize in family planning.
Okay.
And so just to kind of give a quick overview, medical school, then OBGYN residency, then additional fellowship training in complex family planning.
Okay.
And so then after that, then I was a full-fledged doctor, no longer baby.
Yes. Okay. Young Deshawn growing up, what was it that, did you always want to be a doctor? What was it that inspired you to take this?
So I'm not quite sure where the thought came from, but I decided I was going to be a doctor. I was around 6 or 7 years old.
Oh, okay.
And I held on to that. And my father, during some midlife change, decided to become a nurse. And so I think that my father doing nursing was an opportunity for him to continue to cultivate that idea that I was going to go into healthcare.
Yes.
And so throughout my entire young life, I held that belief that I was going to be a doctor. Now, actually, I was going to be a brain surgeon.
Oh, okay.
And I held on to that one until my sophomore year in college. And then I read Ben Carson's book, Gifted Hands. Gosh, his legacy. I shake my head when I think about it. But after reading his book, I was like, I don't think I can be a brain surgeon, but I still want to be a doctor. So at that point, I really started to think of my young adult self and, what were my values and what type of physician did I want to be.
Right.
And then I settled in on, I want to take care of women.
Yes.
And then going into medical school, really starting to be clear, falling in love with obstetrics and gynecology.
Because, a lot of times people say they want to be a doctor, but they haven't thought about what type of doctor. They just think doctors take care of people, but they don't think of what kind of doctor do I want to be. That is interesting. That is interesting. What about mom? What was her specialty?
So my mom was basically someone who worked in child and family welfare.
Okay.
So the entire time that we were in Los Angeles, she actually retired here in Arizona.
Oh.
That's how I considered coming to Arizona.
Okay.
But she was always in the system in Los Angeles helping families get they need. And then she eventually was inspired to go back to school. And so she has a degree in social work.
Oh.
And it makes absolute sense.
Yes, it does. It's all, it's all about caring for people. And that's what you guys all do. That is lovely. So you're a physician, OBGYN. Okay, you've done that for how many years now?
So I have been a physician for 21 years. I graduated
Wow.
medical school in 2001.
Wow, congratulations. And you opened up your practice here in Arizona. Tell us about your practice, the name, and how long have you been in practice?
So I've been operating Desert Star Family Planning in Phoenix, Arizona for 9 years.
Okay.
And the reason that I started that practice was because over the course of my career, I just started to get a really strong feeling about how I personally want to take care of people, how I wanted people to feel when they were coming for intimate care.
Right.
You know, we haven't mentioned yet that I'm an abortion provider, and I've been providing that care for the entire time I've been a doctor.
Okay.
And with a lot of the polarization around the care and a lot of siloing because of the polarization of the care, I really felt that I wanted people to feel like they were just at the doctor,
Right.
like for any other care that they provide. And so realizing that I wasn't going to create that model working for someone else, then I ultimately answered the call. It's been a call that's been on me for a while to go ahead and start my own practice.
I love it. I love it. Now, speaking about what you do in your practice, you are also an activist. It's moved you into being an activist because of everything that's been going on this year. How has that affected you as a person, besides being the doctor? How has that affected Deshawn?
So interestingly, when I first set out in my medical career, I was academic. I was into research. You know, my initial plan was I was going to be a full professor, researcher, somebody's OBGYN department chair at some university. And over the course of just some real strong feelings and ideas I started to have based on, again, a lot of the politics around abortion, then I did start to make a transition from being more academic minded to being more community justice minded.
Right.
And that actually solidified when I started the practice. Being in private practice and being specifically located in an economically depressed, medically underserved, ethnically diverse population of folks, so with a lot of asylum seekers and immigrants, and just having all of those intersections that, you know, people were coming in for specific types of care, but they weren't leaving their whole bodies at the door and just bringing their uterus in, right? So it becomes one of those things where if you really have a justice-based values framework, then you have to start to realize that you can't just be a doctor. You have to be an advocate for the people that you're taking care of. And so that was something that became a really big part of who I am as I started to work more along with the community to improve the conditions of the people that I was seeing. So that was a really well, I guess a decade almost now, so not too new transformation, but yeah. And so more recently, I've been a lot more public, and speaking and rallying and those type of things,
because of what you do and because of your clinic and what you have been doing. It has brought more publicity to you and your facility, correct?
Yeah. So I didn't really have a personal web presence. I always just operated as my clinic. I started a nonprofit 5 years ago, and I started to get out a bit more into public space through that. But ultimately, just because a lot of the ugliness surrounding the care and, you know, some of the harassment and things, I was out, but not quite, in terms of just kind of trying to lay low to not have a lot of drama related to some things that people like to do. But then ultimately realizing that I personally have so many intersections in my body that matter to people, right? I am a Black woman. I am a physician. I am an abortion provider. And so there are so many reasons that people need to see me and know that I exist. I mean, my picture it has always been on my website.
Sure.
And patients have come to the clinic specifically because they saw me on the website and saw me out as a Black woman. Only 2% of physicians are Black women. So I don't even know what that number means, what the number is for OBGYNs.
Is that here in Arizona?
Nationwide, only 2%. of physicians are Black women.
So how has all of this affected your business?
So definitely I've had a lot of, with the visibility, I don't have to advertise. It's word of mouth. And so it was an interesting experience where at points I've tried to bring others into the practice to assist. And they weren't very successful. And so that was money spent basically to take some time off, but it didn't really grow the practice to have additional people there. And I realized that, well, okay, I have to come to terms with the fact that I'm the awesome sauce. People are coming to the clinic because they want to see me
that, the
specifically.
awesome sauce.
And so, I mean, it's a blessing, right? But it's definitely a significant responsibility to know that I don't have that bandwidth, to do too much because I'm the only provider.
So what is it that makes you the awesome sauce? As creatives, we have to figure out why we're the awesome sauce, because we can be going off of this role or this gig and there's 20 of them out there thinking they're the awesome sauce. So we have to determine what is it that makes us the awesome sauce. And that's with any position you hold. You need to know why you're the awesome sauce. So explain to us why you're the awesome sauce in your practice.
So definitely having had a couple of different practitioners work in the clinic and starting to get feedback for example, if a patient who was used to seeing me saw the other provider and then came back to me and it's like, I'm so glad you're back. And I was like, well, what happened? He was like, well, the other person wasn't bad. I just prefer you. And so I was like, okay, what people say often is that they just feel extremely comfortable. They feel seen.
That's an important one right there.
Yes. I often have had interactions where people are ready, like shoulders tense, jaw set, fists ready. They are ready to get their point across to the doctor. Like, you are going to listen to me today. And I'm like, okay, we're going to listen.
Yeah.
And I think that has been something that is missing with the way the healthcare has become a lot more business-like, and not giving you the time to have the personal interaction and attention and create that interpersonal experience.
Right. Do you think a lot of that happened? I don't know. Are you documenting electronically?
Yes.
Okay. You think a lot of that happened when we started documenting electronically? No. Can't blame it on that. Okay.
No. What's happened is the corporatization of healthcare. So the doctor isn't just working to take care of themselves and the people specifically working with them in the clinic. They are also working to take care of the corporate interests and stakeholders and people who own, parts of things. And so unfortunately, I know that the public sees the doctor and thinks it's the doctor's fault. But, these productivity standards are impacted how people get promoted, what they get paid. And also insurance reimbursement is less. So you have to literally see twice as many people to make the same amount of money. So I still have to pay attention to those things in private practice, but I have the opportunity to really create an environment that fosters people's comfort. So all the way from what the website looks like to how the receptionist answers the phone to the art on the walls to all of those things. It creates a space that is uniquely set up for people to feel calm and comfort and feel like, okay, this person, these people are going to take care of me. And it's reflected in everything that people say about the practice.
And it also, it's reflective of you. It's something that makes you feel at home. You want to go there and be there every day, or how many days you work. It makes you feel good as a doctor also. Yeah. So, Deshawn, you're a physician, you're an activist, you're doing a lot in the community, but you authored a book. tell us about your new book.
So the title of my book is Undue Burden,
Okay.
a Black Christian pro-abortion physician in the reproductive justice movement.
Okay.
And the book is going to be published early 2023,
Okay.
probably April, hopefully March. And I was approached by the publisher actually a couple of years ago to write a book. And at that time, I was like, I probably could write a book, but I don't want to write a book. And so when I was approached this time, I was thinking the timing was really going to be interesting. The Supreme Court had just taken up the Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization case. And when they did that, I said to myself, they are going to seriously consider overturning Roe v. Wade.
Right.
Because other compositions of the court never took a case up that would directly challenge Roe v. Wade. And Roe v. Wade was the decision in 1973 that made abortion completely accessible and legal across the country. And so when the publisher approached me, I was like, okay, I think that this would be a good time for me to write a book with everything that I'm anticipating may happen. But then on the other side of it, I was like, well, too, if Roe v. Wade is overturned, it would impact my practice and my ability to keep it open.
Right.
It would be a financial struggle. And if I'm going to write a book, I need some writing assistance because I just don't have time to write a book. And so ultimately, I went ahead and decided to do this. And I told the publisher that Roe v. Wade is going to be overturned. And the publisher was like, really? You think so? I was like, yes, they're going to do it. And so we started to come up with the concept around February. And so we had already had the oral arguments at the Supreme Court. And so in my mind, I listened to what they said. And I said, yeah, they told us what they're going to do.
Right.
Of course, you hold out hope that things could be different. And so as we were going through the leaked draft opinion and then the ultimate decision, I was writing during that time. And I was also doing a lot of media, which like the two processes were really informing each other. And then it also put me in a position to really think through like what does my future look like? What is the future of my practice? And really start to figure out things for myself, because otherwise with all of the emotion around it and the uncertainty, it would be really easy to kind of just not deal with it.
So how did you decide on what avenue you were going to take with writing your book?
So interestingly, we started out with a book plan, and I had some initial ideas before the leaked draft opinion actually happened. And so after that, when we actually got to the work of starting to write the book, I had already done like a ton of media interviews. And my thought process had transformed. So like we kind of have some of the same chapters initially that we started out with for the book plan, but the book actually is a good 3/4 different than what it originally was planned to be, because I was changing over the course of all the things that were happening and all of the emotions, thoughts and feelings, decisions, troubles. You know, there were times where I had to pause services because Arizona has a lot of conflicting laws on the book that carry jail time, felony charges for providers who don't comply. And so, and then most of my staff are people of color, because I have a commitment as a woman of color to hire people of color. And so the fear of criminalization in communities of color was also impacting my ability to provide services, because people were afraid and have to honor that people feel the way they feel. Even though I'm a Black woman, do you think I want to go to jail? Would I do anything to put you in a position to go to jail? But again, honoring that people, you know, the fear in communities of color around policing, carceral state, how things get enforced.
So how did you what was the deciding factor for the name Undue Burden?
So there is this tenet as it relates to previous Supreme Court decisions there was a case where it was determined that you cannot create an undue burden for someone accessing abortion care. And so
Okay.
that was something that was held up for a lot of cases that got favorable decisions at the Supreme Court.
Oh,
And so that's where the undue burden came from.
okay. So I know that you were just at an event where you were speaking. So do you foresee this putting more of those types of speaking engagements out there for you to speak on this topic?
I sure hope so. You know, how we got to this place where we are right now, where 14 states do not have an abortion provider, and still more states have bans on the books that are not being enforced due to litigation, and even more, like Arizona having a decrease in the gestational limit for care. There are people right now just rushing to the idea that we want to reinstate what was. And I see this as an opportunity to create something better.
Right, right.
Even though Roe v. Wade was the law of the land, there were still people who didn't have access to the care they needed.
True.
You know, people in rural areas, people with depressed economic situations, people with the type of jobs where you can't get time off work,
Right.
you know, people with children who can't get child care, and just the affordability of
Right.
getting care. And so
it's opening up the door for change.
there's opportunity
Yes,
for change.
So where can our audience find you?
So I actually created a consulting company as I've been working through all of my thoughts and ideas about what the way forward is, how we can make sure that we expand access to care for people. And it really does require a transformational shift in how we think about bodily autonomy and our reproduction and gender. And it's called Health Justice MD.
Okay.
And so people can go to healthjusticemd.net.
Okay.
You'll also find information about the book and the opportunity to sign up to find out when the book is actually going to be published and events surrounding the book. And I also have a blog on the site that I'm
Awesome.
blogging based on the content in the book.
That is awesome. It was such a pleasure to have you here with us today and to talk about all that's going on in our community and with OBGYN, family planning, abortion, and just life. Thank you, Dr. Deshawn Taylor.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us here today on Desertwood Days, and we'll catch you next time.
Today's episode of Desertwood Days with Kathy Blaze was sponsored by Dork Publishing. Visit them at dorkpublishing.com.